my Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1532 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome, with 8 championships since 1967. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, returning to Toronto Mic'd for his quarterly, is Ed Keenan from the Toronto Star. Welcome back, Ed.
At long last. This has been rescheduled like 3 times.
So normally you would be here like the first Thursday every 3 months. So you were supposed to be here a month ago, early July.
Guess
so you postponed, and then we rescheduled, and then you're like, Mike, I got to postpone again. Better late than never to get Keenan on Toronto Mic'd.
Yeah, our system had not failed us before today, which is that when we decided we'd do this every 3 months, you just put a recurring event in the calendar.
Right.
And then often we don't even talk beforehand. I just show up and it's all
We
good.
never talk beforehand.
But this summer has been a crowded one. And before we even get started, I should just say, like...
Talk to me.
I have been on vacation from work for most of the last 3 weeks. And so I haven't...
So you don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
We'll talk it out together.
Exactly. We'll see. I've spent a lot of time on baseball diamonds with youth baseball teams, helping to coach.
You're a coach, right?
Yeah. But how's the Toronto Maple Leafs season going?
Not good.
A couple times
actually.
we had talked about coming down there and talking to you down there.
Yeah, I tried to
I'm
get you...
sorry we haven't been able to schedule that.
So I was recording there last Thursday, and yeah, I always reach out to you, Ed, and say, hey, drop by Christie Pitts for a little chat, and you're always coaching somewhere else in Ontario. But the team is not going to win, what did I say in the intro? 8 championships since 1967. So there will not be a 9th.
It's not on track for 9.
No, they have some work to do, but the new ownership, this is the first season, so like they kind of see the lay of the land. I think this ownership will do some exciting things to bring a championship back.
Like on
Toronto.
the field?
On the field. Like, I mean, they've already upgraded the sound system, and they have some plans to do things like at Christie Pitts to enhance the experience. But I think they're going to, I'm thinking of like the Dalton Pompeys, or like what they did with the Butler brothers, Rich and Rob. Like that kind of thing. And I don't know, we'll see. But I think there's an opportunity to bring in some guys maybe just fresh off their major league careers, or some interesting players that would be exciting to watch and can help deliver a championship to this team.
Well, I mean, people listening to this probably don't need us to tell them, or don't need me to remind them, but I haven't been down this season, but I love watching that team in that park. It's just kind of, what a way to spend a Sunday or something, it's great. It's great.
It really is. Like, I'm telling you, I was there Sunday. And it's a high caliber baseball. You can sit wherever, like bring your own seat. If you can sit on the hill, a lot of people like to sit on the hill because we say fill the hill. But you can sit wherever. It's great vantage point for high quality baseball.
Like they
no
do have
ticket
some
required.
Bleachers down there near the
a few rows,
near the
I
ground
think.
level. Yeah, but it's it's like the old Ontario Place Forum.
Yeah.
Where the good seats are on the lawn because you bring your own picnic blanket.
Seriously.
Something in a thermos or whatever, and there's hot dogs at the stand. They sell beer there now too, right?
So there's a Leafs lager from it's from Left Field. They make that lager. Shout out to Left Field. I have for you Great Lakes beer, okay? But and I know you're not a big beer guy. You can bring that home for your wife.
That's all right.
But there is that's cold
There's
out of the fridge.
A hop pop.
It's
here.
a hop pop on the mic.
Actually, this is from Great Lakes.
Yeah,
Brewery.
Great Lakes makes that. So that's a non-alcoholic beverage from Great Lakes Brewery you can enjoy. So shout out to Great Lakes, my craft beer of choice. But Left Field makes a great beer that they sell at the ballpark. I was enjoying it on Sunday. And it's, to me, that's the most best value. You can bring the whole family. I know my buddy Elvis brought his son and his son's bud. We had they had an opportunity to run the bases, like just think about that when you were like 8, 9, 10 years old. If you had the opportunity to run the bases at a semi-pro game like that.
The last time I was here, you gave me the Toronto Maple Leafs history.
Did you check it out?
Book here, yeah, I did, and I found there was a time where I was going regularly where Paul Spaljarek was pitching for them, so I looked through some of the history of those teams, but also. My grade 9 math teacher, Larry Downs, I knew he played on the Canadian Olympic baseball team, and that he also played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, so I looked up some of his stats. And then he's my brother-in-law's brother. So my sister-in-law by marriage, my wife's sister, is married to a guy and his brother. So I think we're like technically no relation.
No.
But John Lockwood played some professional baseball in the U.S. He came up out of High Park, played like low A professional baseball in the Mariners system in the U.S. And then when he came back, he played a few seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I was looking up his statistics, and then it was like the next day that I was at a family party that he was at, so we got to talk about it.
Amazing!
He had some fond memories of it. So interesting personal connections for me inside the book, as well as the the baseball history of the team.
Well, next season, the championship season for the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, I got to get you down there when I'm recording. Hopefully we do this again. And I know I gave you that book because you just talked about it, but if you know anyone in your life who would enjoy a book, I do have another one. Every time you appear, you get a book. So you've got yourself another Toronto Maple Leafs book.
Well, maybe I should give one to Johnny Lockwood.
Yeah, seriously.
He's in it.
He's in the freaking book.
He was kind of surprised to find out that...
that this exists.
There was a season or two, I think, where he was like the leader in wins for the team or something like that. So
you're having a great summer, it sounds like, coaching baseball, and your kids play for this team? What's the deal there?
Well, I mean, I have 2 daughters who are still playing baseball. My son is retired from most organized sports. But yeah, I have a 15-year-old daughter who plays baseball, and then a 12-year-old daughter who plays baseball, and we've had a bunch of tournaments. They have their league play here in Toronto, and then we went to a tournament in Kentucky.
Nice.
Actually, the biggest girls baseball tournament in North America. There are teams from all over the place. So my younger daughter played with the DC Force, which was the team she played with when we lived in Washington, D.C.
Right.
She kind of reunited with them for that tournament. And my older daughter's Toronto team went down there and lost in the semifinals to a team from San Francisco. But a sort of great experience, a great effort. And then as soon as we came back, like the next weekend, there was a big girls baseball tournament here in Toronto. We lost in the finals at that one. And then my daughter also, I was the coach of the Toronto team in the Ontario Summer Games. Which happened in London, Ontario.
Hey, that's a esteemed honor. Like, that sounds impressive to me when you say that out loud.
Yeah, I mean, it was an honor. There were players from around Toronto, and they're very good, and then players from all around the province at the tournament, and it was a real kind of fun experience. If people don't know what the Ontario Summer Games are, they're like a mini Olympics or a mini Pan Am Games for 15 and 16-year-olds in Ontario. So
sounds amazing.
So they have basketball and sailing and track and field events, baseball, lacrosse, like 17 or 18 or 19 different sports. And all the athletes who, depending on the sport, they set it up in different ways, but typically like represent a city or a region and then come to compete against the other ones. But they all stay, in the athletes' villages, which in this case were residences at Western University and at Fanshawe College, and then sort of live together through the tournament, eat meals together, get bused to and from the games together, and so do their coaches. So actually, myself and another of the assistant coaches were in a shared dorm room at Saugeen there. There was like a throwback to residence days. So it was great, but it was also exhausting. And then now that we come back, our select loop playoffs are coming up, and then immediately after that, the House League playoffs for my younger daughter resume. So lots more on the horizon, but it has been a ton of fun. So I mean, I don't know how interesting that all was for people, but it has been
people want to
like
know
a lot
what
of
you're up
time
to.
on a baseball diamond, and it's really rewarding and really like fun, but also sort of like baking in the sun a lot. So if I seem a little zoned out, it's because I'm in recovery from spending like 16 or 17 hours standing out in the sun on a baseball field.
You put the sunscreen on the nose. That's first to burn on me.
I do, yeah. I mean, everything. My skin burns very quickly and goes very red, and so I put sunscreen on everywhere, but especially on the nose.
So you don't go brown; you go straight to red.
No, yeah, I'm from a pasty and easily burned.
See, I actually burn. I actually tan pretty well. Like I've been out of my kayak quite a bit this summer, and I still bike like crazy, and I do put on my sunscreen. But I seem to kind of.
Yeah, you have. I can see the bronze on your arms there. I actually have.
You should see my farmer's tan.
Started to turn brown a bit, but yeah, you can see. I'm showing off my farmer's tan here, which is
Let's compare
a pretty
farmer's
high
tan.
contrast between the forearms and the.
Oh, you should see me. If I take off my sandals, you should see the difference, like the sandal tan lines. It's unbelievable. Maybe for our photo by the Toronto tree, we'll take off our shirts, okay? How about it?
Nobody wants that.
Pasty white guys with farmer tans.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to cover a lot of ground. I've set my timer because I actually have to pick up kids from camp. So right off the top, I'm going to let you know, Ed, that you have a palma pasta lasagna.
Hey, there we go.
my
My daughter said to me before I left the house, like,
is that why you're
she
here?
said, "Where are you going?" I said, I said, "I thought you were on vacation." I said, "I'm doing a podcast with Toronto Mike," and she said, "Oh, so we get lasagna."
Yep, she knows the deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got your lasagna.
I have told people before on your podcast about like living in the U.S. and the pronunciation of pasta versus pasta being like a whole thing there. But I was reminded at this DC Force tournament, one of my younger daughter's closest friends in DC's name was Asta, and her dad has most of his family lives in Kingston, Ontario, and so the way he told people, they told the name. They in the U.S. they always just say Asta rhymes with pasta.
Pasta rhymes with pasta.
Which is why all her relatives in Kingston call her Asta, because to them the rhyme just tells them every time. It's
well, I'm the lone Canadian who says pasta. I'm gonna keep that claim to fame.
It rolls
here.
off the tongue when you're saying palma pasta.
Yeah, because it's again, I'll remind people that this is Dennis Weaver in ads for Mother's Pizza, and he would go on those ads and say pizza pasta made perfect, and that's why I say pasta, because Dennis Weaver did it in these ads for Mother's Pizza.
There you go.
And you remember Mother's Pizza?
I do.
Fond memories of Mother's
Pizza. I get the root beer float, bring home the glass. That was my favorite glass for years and years.
Oh, it's my.
It's like a big fluted.
Absolutely, kind of like this thing, maybe a bit like a.
Yeah, it didn't have a
muggy
it
stein.
was like
It's
less of
giant
a
on it.
stein. It didn't have a handle on it. It was
Right.
more like a big fancy fluted, like I don't even know what kind of glass that's called, but
Right.
it was like a tall water glass, except very shapely and with a mother's. Not just a logo, but like a whole legend on it and pictures. And,
You still have it?
Yeah. No.
That's unfortunate.
Glasses don't survive the decades in my homes.
You gotta take care of those glasses. Okay, so this is 4 months in the making. So we got some of this stuff will
You
be
say,
like
lots
ancient
to get
history.
to.
Oh my goodness! But I took notes along the way, right? So we're gonna cover the spots that Toronto Mike wants to cover.
Got it.
And just so you know, you're only 2 months removed from your next appearance, so we can't drain the swamp completely because we're gonna get back on schedule. So in a couple of months you'll be back here.
All right.
So I want to let the listenership know if they have old electronics, old cables, old devices in a drawer or in a box somewhere in the basement or in the attic or whatnot, don't throw that in the garbage because the chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code and find out where you can drop that off to be properly recycled. So shout out to recyclemyelectronics.ca, and of course shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Another measuring tape is going home. Your daughter should be like, are you going to Toronto Mike's? Oh good, I get another measuring tape. So shout out to Ridley Funeral Home for the measuring tape. Okay, we're going to cook with gas, and once I set you up, I'm going to turn off, I can hear in the background, I did not turn off the dehumidifier, which is going to bother me through the recording, so I'm going to shut that down. But let me set you up. Can we go back? We actually, since we last talked, which was 4 months ago, a Toronto City Councillor passed away. Jay Robinson passed away, and I'm wondering if maybe you can just share a little bit about Jay Robinson, and then maybe we can talk about who will fill that role for that riding in Toronto City Council.
Yeah. Jay Robinson, was first elected with Rob Ford. So I guess that was, what was that? That was 2010.
2010.
Yeah, and prior to that, she had worked for the city. She was like a department manager. One of her big proud things was the sort of like Summerlicious and Winterlicious festivals, the trying to help bring in Nuit Blanche, I believe, the under Mel Lastman, the sort of Moose in the City project. So like a lot of those promotions. And she was a bit of a wild card when she arrived because she wasn't identifiably like a member of sort of the right wing of council, and yet wasn't a leftist either. She was they called themselves the mushy middle or the mighty middle. When it was first, when they first the Star articles came out about these people who were not on Team Ford and not on the Resistance either. It was like Josh Matlow, Josh Cole, Michelle Berardinetti, who became known as Michelle Holland later. Jay Robinson, and a few others. And then, they kind of splintered into different teams. And I think over the time Rob Ford was mayor, Jay Robinson sort of became a fairly reliable vote for him, but not a gimme, right? And then under John Tory, she was a real core part of the team. She had been, although she was suffering through an illness, since her re-election, and so wasn't at City Hall in person a lot, wasn't as active as she might have otherwise been, but she had sort of been shaping up to be one of the real opposition members under Olivia Chow. That she had sort of drifted more firmly, whether council drifted or whether she did, more firmly onto the right wing of city council, more so than, say, someone like Jennifer McKelvey, who served sort of an equally arguably more prominent towards the end, but equally reliable role for John Tory, who has now become sort of a member of Olivia Chow's team. Jay Robinson had been shaping up to sort of be, with Brad Bradford and a few others, one of the more reliable votes against Olivia Chow, or the people most likely to sort of raise opposition. And then she died, of course, so there's going to be a by-election. We got lots of time before that by-election. I will be back here almost for sure before that, because and so a few different people are going to run. I know Anthony Fury, who
I heard that, yeah.
who ran for mayor recently and is a broadcaster, commentator, former Sun media guy.
He was at that party we were at when
that's right
at 640 for the Breaking Brews from Great Lakes Brewery.
But he is not the only person running, and so I think he's going to run hard. He'll be a contender, and then there are a few others, and I need to sort of go get caught up and briefed right up to speed. But some of them have roots at city council. They've worked for other city councilors. They've worked in that ward, and so it's too early to tell anything for sure, but there are going to be at least a few strong, legitimate candidates there.
Well, you'll be back in early
one
October.
Question for Olivia Chow hasn't faced a lot of firm opposition yet, right? There are a few people who like to speak up against her. Stephen Holiday votes against her really reliably. Right. He's an outlier on this. Matt Elliott makes a chart of who's voting percentage with or against the mayor on core votes. And, even people like Brad Bradford, who might be thought of as the leader of the opposition, he ran against Olivia Chow, and he's a spokesperson kind of for putting up some resistance to her. Right. But even still, I'd have to go and look at it for sure. But it's he still votes with the mayor 55% of the time. A lot of this stuff is not every issue is super controversial, right?
Sometimes they have should water remain wet?
Yeah. No, right. Exactly. And
then Holiday's no.
Stephen Holiday's 4% or something, or 14%. It's right. He's just a giant outlier on that. But and John Burnside, who has voted with the mayor a lot and has said some good things about how she's going, but has been willing to, vote against her or speak up against her on things that he thinks are important. The question. There are some people who are providing some opposition at City Hall, but they're not close to a majority of council yet.
Well, let me ask you.
And the question here is like whether Olivia Chow will solidify sort of her majority, or whether, another Anthony Fury certainly would be, probably in the holiday category of dissenting voices.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens there.
Well, how is Olivia Chow doing? I feel like she must be doing pretty well, considering the last kind of negative thing I heard came from the Toronto Sun and elsewhere about how she dressed for the Caribbean Festival, like the full regalia, right? So I'm interested in a couple things. So how is Olivia Chow doing? And do you have any thoughts on, her festive spirit when it came to the Caribbean Festival?
Okay, so first of all, how she's doing. I mean, I think it depends on how you're evaluating her, but I think by a lot of different measures of evaluating her, she's doing pretty good, right? I think she... And so now this is not going to be new news, but I think it's still the case that when she was first elected, it was an open question, not just for the general public who kind of is like, oh, there's this NDP mayor now and blah, blah, blah. John Tory was a conservative. But people who follow City Hall, trying to do the math early on, were like, is she going to be able to do anything? Because she doesn't really have the votes. If you look at people like Paul Ainslie and Jennifer McKelvey, who were kind of on John Tory's team, or even for a while on Rob Ford's team, tend to be right of center. How's she going to, Mike Cole, how's she going to get a majority? And in fact, she has not lost a vote yet, but not only that, she hasn't had any that are even particularly close. Wow. She has council working with her. Yeah. And then I think some of the big things she's tried to accomplish, and the biggest would be, that by Toronto standards, massive tax increase, again, passed relatively uncontroversially. And I don't think everyone in the general public loved them, but I think that she managed to stick handle them through without turning it into a fight to the death at city council or a political suicide mission. It is a testament to sort of like how she's kind of managed things. And then I think aside from those a few items like that, let's also say like getting along with Doug Ford, which is not something that everybody wants to praise her for, right? There are a lot of people who think she sold out Ontario Place. And I think we talked about it before, where it's like, I don't know that she had a winning hand to play on Ontario Place. Right.
So she had to play the card.
It's sort of dealt. Like, okay, yeah, you're going to do what you're going to do anyway, and I'll stop complaining about it loudly.
Which is very,
in exchange
very
for
shrewd, like very clever.
Hundreds of billions and billions of dollars, right? And so, but but there are people who think she should have gone down there and chained herself to a tree and sued the province and all of that. And so I think the relationship with Doug Ford, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, is going to depend to some extent on what you think. But I think to the extent that the city, to the extent that the city needs the province's help on all kinds of things, and the province's permission on all kinds of things, she has gotten along with him fairly well. So, I mean, on some real world measures, like traffic, congestion, transit reliability, housing, actual building of housing and availability of affordable housing, the homelessness crisis, I think, real progress kind of remains to be seen. She can and will point to a bunch of things she's done that should show progress on those things, but I don't know that anybody's seeing it yet, and it may be too early to evaluate how effective the things she's done are. It's like you're not going to build thousands and thousands and thousands of affordable housing units in 6 months or 1 year or even 2 years, and so we'll have to see as progress goes on. But I think recently, the last couple months, it's been kind of quiet, right, around City Hall. And I think maybe that's by design. But I think generally she has good vibes. And now her Caravana outfit or Carnival outfit.
Okay, so is it festival or carnival? It's a Caribbean Carnival.
That's right.
Not
used to
Caribbean
be called
Festival.
Caravana.
Of course.
But the Caribbean Festival.
So what is that? Does somebody own the name and there's a licensing issue there and a trademark at play? Like, why is it no longer Caravana?
Yeah. It's like an organizational thing, I think.
You know what? We can still call it SkyDome. We can still call it Caravana, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So
I have no opinion on her
Well, it's
outfit.
just
for
I
a
saw the
caravan.
photos,
It's like,
and to me, and she apparently she's done this historically. It just looked like she was like having a good time at this carnival, and I was kind of like digging it. And then I started seeing from different spots, like, oh, this is embarrassing. And then there was a piece, Warmington wrote in the Sun, I think, that she's getting the crown from Justin Trudeau in terms of costumes and dress up prizes or something to that effect. And then I'm like, oh, there's some people are poking at this, and I'm wondering what Ed Keenan thinks, because you're a wise man.
I mean, I think very little. I think she looks like she's in a festive carnival costume.
Yeah.
I think she has done it before. I'm pretty sure I've seen pictures of
I heard
her
it's like her thing.
in the parade before. It's the thing for the parade. I have been on vacation, so I didn't read Warmington's thing. But does he mean like with Justin Trudeau, like dressing up in somebody else's cultural dress? Is that what he's trying to accuse her of cultural appropriation?
Oh, like in India where he was accused of that.
Yeah.
Possibly like that. And then I start wondering, like, oh, like, because my wife is not from the Caribbean, but I believe she's been at one of these carnivals and dressed up as such.
Everybody I know who has participated in the parade has dressed up in the costume.
And you don't need to be a Caribbean descent.
The band you're with.
Right.
Or the float you're on, like the band, whoever you're jumping up with, they'll have often like matching costumes, right? And they're made for it, and they're amazing. That's what participation is. It's like if you showed up, to play in the council baseball tournament and you wore a baseball uniform. It's not like, whoa, what does that mayor think she's doing? What is that? What are you dressing up like? Or if you're like, serve at a charity event in the kitchen and you wore a chef jacket, it doesn't mean you suddenly think you're a chef. It just means you're dressed for the job you're doing, right? Like this is the environment. And so, I mean,
it's all good
beyond
fun.
that, I'm grasping to come up with an opinion for something I previously had not thought I had to have an opinion on. But
do you remember when Obama got criticized for wearing a tan suit? Do you remember this? And do you remember feeling like, oh, now that they're going at his tan suit, like things must be pretty damn good for Obama that they're going at the suit. I kind of feel that way about this with Olivia. Like if that's what you've got, which is like her full regalia for the Caribbean Carnival. By the way, again, Caribbean or Caribbean? What do you say, Ed Keenan, at the Toronto Star?
Oh, boy.
Caribbean or Caribbean? And is there a correct way? I'm asking the tough questions.
I don't know.
And how do you say brewery? Just kidding. Okay, so I just thought this is our mayor having fun with this big event in our city that she's the mayor of, and I thought it was all good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how else are you going to dress if you're jumping up in the parade?
I thought she looked amazing too. Like this is our mayor looking amazing.
Good for her, right?
Yeah, good for you, Olivia. Okay, now speaking of mayors, I want to ask you, what is your current radio status, Ed Keenan? This is going to tie into a former mayor, but are you on the air at 640? Do you have a show?
I'm not.
What's going on?
I'm doing a lot of podcasts at the Star, and I'm very busy there, and we're working on, the whole podcast suite of podcasts at the Star is sort of being revamped. They've launched a few new series and stuff, and there are some changes in the work for what I'm doing there. Do you want to tell me the changes? The multiple. You will find them out.
Is there a scoop here? I'm going to play the breaking news stinger.
I don't have the changes to announce right now because basically, as the end of the summer, like everywhere else, at the Star, a lot of the staff take vacation time over the summer, not for the entire summer, but it's sort of like staggered. You don't have the whole team in one place at a time. You get
serious on the day after Labor Day. You get serious.
So it's sort of like as we all return from summer vacation, in earnest, we'll be working on sort of rolling out some changes over the next month or two. And maybe the next time we're here, we'll have things to talk about.
If my math is right, that's early October.
But so I am not currently on the air at any other Toronto radio station, and I'm not particularly in a rush to get back on the air there.
Is that a purposely said? You're going to be the new host of The Rush on 1010? Is that what you're saying?
I certainly am happy to be a guest on various radio stations when the opportunity arises. And I have been over the last little while on 1010, on 640, and on CBC Radio.
Cool.
And if any of them, wanted a guest host for particular spots or whatever, I'd be happy to talk about that and see if it would fit my schedule.
Would they give you
right now I'm really focused on, I got a lot on the go, and I'm really focused on that. And that's, That's the truth. I know you would ask me about this like before, and if sort of like I got ousted from 640 and all of that, and I told you at that point, like Mike Ben Dixon and I, had talked about having a coffee, and honestly, we just didn't have that coffee, but not because he wouldn't schedule it, and not because I thought there was anything against me. The honest truth is that I've been busy, and I'm not actually particularly eager to fill up my schedule in a hurry otherwise too. So
well, you were blowing me off, so if you were not blowing Mike Ben Dixon off, I'd be like jealous and upset and hurt. So thank you for that. Okay, the reason I'm asking about your current radio status is not just because I'm always interested in when you'll be on our terrestrial airwaves, which somebody told me is an oxymoron. Oxymoron? No. Somebody told me it's redundant. Sorry, not an oxymoron. But like from the Department of Redundancy Department or whatever to say terrestrial airwaves, but I still think that's how it should be said. So John Tory has been filling in for John Moore on the 1010 morning show. Like he just did a 2-week stint. And I'm naturally curious, did you tune into any of the John Tory on 1010?
As far as I know, I wasn't really in town much for that stint, and so I did not tune into it. I wish I had.
Wait till you find out it's streaming on the internet. Wait till you find out. Okay. So now I'm curious because this guy was mayor for like a decade, and then as we discussed in great detail, and the more we talked about it and the more I considered the facts that we know, which is obviously not everything, the more I believe we have a woman who's like significantly younger than John Tory, let's say 40 years younger possibly. We have a man, John Tory, who is no longer with his wife, like they had split. And we had a COVID pandemic, and we had a relationship which might be like more of like confidant than lover.
From what it seems, yeah.
Right. But, you talk to the average...
there was some romantic or, like from the Integrity Commissioner's report, which is what I have to go on, right? There was some physical component to that, but it was not
maybe I missed
a main component of it.
Oh, but there was, it's more than just a confidant crying on somebody's shoulder.
Yeah. But this was like, they were much more likely to sit and watch movies together and talk and all of that.
Okay, but a little physical, so it's not quite
have a quickie in the bathroom or anything.
Okay.
Right? I think they were physically intimate, according to the Integrity Commissioner's
well, that's all
report.
we have,
like,
really.
But only on a few occasions. Like that wasn't the centerpiece of the relationship or the main part of it.
Okay, interesting. But do you think that the John Tory political comeback, probably not municipally, probably I don't know, federally maybe, but a John Tory political comeback is imminent?
I think it's possible. I have not heard anything that would make me think it's imminent.
Possible. Only because he's hanging around. He seems, he's doing he filled in for John Moore, just did 2 weeks on 1010. And we know, he enjoys doing that, does it for minimum wage. I believe, and I just wondered if it was only a matter of time before he was, he ran as a...
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing is I don't know that there's, and I could be wrong, because I haven't discussed this with him either before or after, but I think being mayor of Toronto was the last political job he wanted to have, or the last sort of political leadership job that he wanted to have. He had planned to run, serve this one last term, and then, but I don't think he ever planned to retire to like obscurity. And the prospect of that happening, to avoid embarrassment or whatever, was only raised by the nature of how he left the mayor's job. But I do think he wants to be and enjoys being a public figure and a voice in the civic conversation. And even before, like, when he was previously semi-retired from politics, he was heading up Civic Action, and he was hosting a radio show. And I think he actually loves being on the radio. Like, I think he likes talking to people and being the voice of Toronto. I think as mayor, he actually most enjoyed, from what I can tell, the role of going out to events and talking to people and being a spokesperson for the city. And, being a broadcaster, he gets to do that without the job of mayor. So, I mean, he may go and run for something again, but it's hard to see what, because he's unlikely, I think, to go and be a conservative backbencher under Pierre Poilievre or under Doug Ford, right? He seems like a guy who's only going to go somewhere where there's a leadership role for him. Right now, there aren't a lot of obvious ones open. I mean, if you think if Justin Trudeau gets trounced and he's going to run for the leadership of the federal Liberals, I mean, it's possible, but I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it.
Interesting. Well, stay tuned to see what John Tory does next.
Wait, have you got info?
No.
Oh.
I was hoping you had a little info. I just have a hunch, like a feeling that he's going to run for office again. Not municipally, but I think I could see him running to be an MP in the Conservative Party or something like that. We'll see. But there is a question on the live stream. So we are live at live.torontomike.com. And Andrew Ward is there. Andrew, by the way, aren't we going to do brunch at some point, bud? Reach out to me, man. I'm a big brunch guy. I'm a brunch head. Are you a brunch guy?
I used to be more of a brunch guy.
Less of a brunch guy
also,
now.
I cooked brunch in restaurants for a better part of a decade. And most chefs hate that. Like, most restaurant cooks hate it, but I actually quite enjoyed making brunch. It's frantic and chaotic, but it's also like, I like cooking eggs.
Okay, just quick on that.
But we also used to go out for brunch a lot when our kids were young, because it's like the one meal you could do.
Right.
And now, but I'm not a guy who wants to wait in line for brunch. like it's just not important to me enough. And my kids are old enough to behave themselves while we're eating dinner, and so I sort of more likely to make breakfast at home.
Quick fun fact is that for a period of time as a teenager, I was opening a McDonald's, which is no longer where I worked. It's gone, but. I would be the guy who would be there at 6 a.m. Saturday and Sunday because I was at school. But 6 a.m. Saturday, Sunday, I would open it up and I'd be the breakfast cook. I don't know.
The egg McMuffin guy?
Yeah, so I did a lot of egg cracking back there and made a lot of
hotcakes and
big
sausage?
breakfasts, hotcakes and so absolutely. So the sausage McMuffins and all that jazz. So I'm not sure that's exactly the same thing.
So do you have the secret hash brown recipe?
Yeah, they're frozen, and you drop them in the fry oil. So that's my secret. But the question from Andrew Ward is, what's Ed's take on John Tory, playing armchair quarterback to Olivia Chow when he's on News Talk 1010? Any thoughts on the fact the former mayor kind of armchair quarterbacking the current mayor on Toronto Talk Radio?
I don't think it's a bad question. I should probably have a better answer than I have.
I'll fix it in post.
I mean, the thing is that traditionally when you leave office, and this happened, like, of all the different people you could think of, like, David Miller was succeeded by Rob Ford, and for a long time just bit his tongue, right? Right. Barack Obama, when Donald Trump succeeded him into office, was not openly critical for quite a while, right? Eventually he did speak up, but for quite a couple of years there, he sort of like, there's a sense that when you leave, you should let the next person try and do the best job they can do without constantly being out there second guessing them and all of that. And maybe a lot of people would think that the impetus to act statesmanlike would be even higher when you kind of left in disgrace, right? When you were forced out, in scandal,
right?
John Tory, he apparently doesn't seem to feel that way, right? But I mean, I think he loves being a radio broadcaster and all of that. But I haven't listened to a lot of his political analysis since he came back on the radio, partly because I just haven't.
You've been busy.
Around.
You're enjoying your summer.
I've been doing other stuff, right?
And that's too much like.
So
work.
I don't know how hard he's going.
Right. Well, I don't know either. I just know
or whatever. I don't expect him to have no opinions.
Right.
But I think that traditionally,
like, he can't recuse himself from local politics chatter.
There's no rule that says you have to do this or anything like that. But traditionally, a lot of politicians who have been the leader in a big job, so as executive kind of level job, have felt like the classy thing to do is not be openly attacking the people who succeeded them, right? You might offer your opinion on various issues, and you might suggest what you should be done, but it's rare that you would be like taking it hard to the hoop against the person who succeeded you into office. I guess Pierre Elliott Trudeau was quiet for a bit, but then around the time of Meech Lake, he came out to be the sort of anti-Meech Lake guy, the anti against Mulrooney. There was a few years in between there, but he really went hard on that. But it's not the done thing traditionally to be like really critical of your successor. But I also don't think like he's not dead. He has under no obligation to pretend he doesn't have opinions or to hide under a bushel or whatever, right? He resigned. He's got a new job. He can do it. But so those are my thoughts, much as they are.
So I realize it's been so long since you've been here. Last time you were over here, which was early April, the PWHL Toronto team was still active. And so I'm just to put a bow on this because you were such a fan and you had season's tickets and we talked so much about this team. How did that season end for our no nickname yet, right? Just the Toronto PWHL team. How did that season end for us? We had high hopes.
The regular season ended amazingly. They won the PWHL equivalent of the President's Trophy, finished first overall. Natalie Spooner won the scoring title. She won the MVP. She was dominant, right? Like lapping the field.
She was Mario Lemieux-esque in her dominance there.
Emma Malte was kind of robbed for Rookie of the Year. And then in the playoffs, they got out to a lead. I was at...
This is Minnesota?
Against Minnesota, yeah. And then they just couldn't finish the job. And they were eliminated in the first round by Minnesota, and so that was the end of the season. And so it's not like that's unfamiliar for Toronto hockey fans
or baseball fans.
But I mean, I think some of the other like super fans and season ticket holders that I've been in contact with or that I follow on social media, I mean, I think come out of the whole season with a generally positive. Like feeling like it was a great season.
Didn't
feeling
Spooner
like
get hurt?
Toronto was a dynamite team. She did. She got injured in a playoff game.
Right.
And that may have changed the course of those playoffs because they are not the same offensive team without her. They have other players who can score. Sarah Nurse is very good. Emma Maltese is very good. The Hannah Miller puts in some timely goals. The offense is not a one-person offense, but it is one of those things where like in basketball, like if they have to defend the big guy, everybody else becomes more dangerous.
Right.
And I feel like Natalie Spooner was that dominant on Toronto that without her, a lot of their other offensive weapons were much easier to cover because you didn't have to worry about her. And that dried up a lot of the scoring for Toronto in that playoff run. But I think most of us are really still feeling great about the season and feeling good going into next year, but it wasn't the storybook ending we were looking for, which was, bringing home that first title.
Championship. Okay, so going into the next season, 2 quick questions. Will we have a nickname? That's the first question. And the second question is, will we still be playing at the Mattamy Arena, as they call it, that's part of the old Maple Leaf Gardens? Or will we get, I would say, almost like promoted to Coca-Cola Coliseum or something like that?
Yeah, 2 good questions. To the best of my knowledge, neither yet definitively answered, but almost for sure they will have a nickname. I think every team in the league is going to have a nickname. They have not unveiled them yet, and we don't know what they are yet. But they almost for sure will have a nickname. And then with those nicknames, they'll probably almost for sure at the same time unveil new logos and new uniforms. I would guess they keep the color schemes the same, but that's not 100% guaranteed. But there's going to be logos and nicknames unveiled before the season starts. And so I guess like everything else, like when we come out of the summer, they'll get into that in earnest, right?
When do they start the season? October? Or is it like the NHL season?
This year they started it, like this first season started in January, right?
Right.
Because they had such a rush to get into it.
Right.
I think this one is going to start in October or November, but I haven't, even as a season ticket holder, it hasn't been communicated to us through the email lists and stuff yet, and I've been in summer mode, so I haven't started, hounding around for it yet. But
this team is more popular, possibly more popular than anticipated, so that they've probably outgrown the Mattamy Center.
They almost for sure have, and some of us who were there all the time, almost wish they will stay at Mattamy because it's an intimate venue.
Right.
There's like a real clubhouse sensibility to it. It's small enough that you can see all the other fans and hear them, and there's not a bad seat in the house. But I do think like so many people by the end of the season wanted tickets and were unable to get them. They could easily, I don't know if they could easily sell out the entire season at Coca-Cola, but it would not surprise me.
Right.
It would not surprise me if they sold it out very quickly, right?
And that's your step up, right? Like that's what's between Scotiabank Arena and Mattamy.
And that's the only step up available in Toronto right now, right? Other than a years-long building project of a new arena, it's like if you want to stay in the city of Toronto proper, if you don't want to wind up out in Mississauga or Brampton or something,
right?
And from everything we know, the PWHL does want to stay downtown. You've got Mattamy, then you've got Coca-Cola, then you've got Scotiabank. Those are your options. There are a few other arenas, St. Mike's, Varsity, but they're smaller than Mattamy. And so, you know, George Bell, Ted Reeve have ticketed arena-style seating if possible in them. But, again, they're much smaller than Mattamy, right? So you know...
So stay tuned.
Some fans were dreaming about adding an upper tier of seats at Mattamy, which when you're standing in there, you could kind of see where they would go, but that would be such a major renovation that I don't imagine is going to happen. So I would not be surprised at all if they wind up in Coca-Cola. In fact, if you ask me to guess, I would think that's the most likely situation. But they are going to have to work it out with the Leafs, whose Marlies play there,
sure,
and with the exhibition board, because there are scheduling challenges to the Coca-Cola Coliseum.
Horses?
And the Marlies already go through those scheduling challenges, which is that there is like a 100-year-plus tradition of hosting the Royal Winter Fair there for like a month,
right?
In the fall. And then there's a fishing show or something, or a boat show that happens there every spring.
Right.
And right now the Marlies go on long road trips when that happens. But so now we would have two teams who not only have to manage their schedules against each other to make sure that the Marlies and the women are not playing on the same nights and stuff, but then they'd also have to manage around these like big, long.
But they can't, you know, there's only so many teams in this league, so how long can your road trip be, right? Like, it's like, you know.
That's exactly it. Like, can you take an entire month off in the fall, like when the season's just kicking up? I don't know. We'll see, right?
Do you have a preferred nickname?
I mean, it could be
team?
that they go with a two arena system where they have some games at Mattamy, some games at Coca-Cola, which they kind of wound up doing last year. They played the whole playoffs at Coca-Cola. They played the one game at Scotiabank. They actually went on the road for a couple games in like Pittsburgh and stuff. So what? Sorry, what was? I have a preferred nickname?
Yeah. Have you thought about this?
I have thought about it, and I don't have. I'm like, the thing is, I don't know that I'm good at coming up with team names at all, and but also like I'm not good at liking any team name ever when I first hear it. It's like when they were there to the Toronto Raptors, and I was like, "Are you kidding?"
Well, we all hated it, didn't we? Yeah, it was such a fad.
When they named SkyDome, everybody was like rolling their eyes. Oh, I get it, because it opens up to the sky. And then within a year, everybody loves it, right? And then when they changed the name years later, so if you had told me, like, if I was not, if we were in some alternate timeline where I was there when they're like, okay, so you know the Toronto Blue Shirts who became the Toronto Arenas, who became the St. Pat's.
Right.
We got it. The permanent name for them, Maple Leafs.
Right.
Like, I don't know that I would have thought that was a good idea.
Right.
And yet it becomes the thing, right? It becomes the tradition. And so I don't know that I'm going to recognize a good name when I see it, but also I haven't come up with anything great myself.
If you have a good nickname for this hockey team, tweet it at me at Toronto Mike, and we'll see if you're right, because then we'll have like a date-stamped archive of it. Okay, so again, I'm going to hit some hot stuff. Now that you're comfortable, Ed, you're feeling good? You're 45 minutes deep here?
I'm
okay.
good.
I need to talk to you about the Ontario Science Centre.
Yeah.
Because so much has transpired on that front. Because last time you were here, you know, kids were still bussing in there for their, to visit the Ontario Science Centre. It was still open. The camps were happening. And now that's not. Now the doors are locked. So give us an update on what happened and what's next. And is it going to be a kiosk at the Cloverdale Mall next year?
Yeah, probably, like something like that. So the provincial government already said they plan to move the Science Centre out of there and into the newly rebuilt Ontario Place. When the Therme Spa water park opens, they would have a lot of those old buildings like the Cinesphere, but also the sort of pods and like mechano-set looking structures that have defined the look of Ontario Place forever. The new Science Center will go in there. And they said that it would just cost too much, like $500 million or something, to restore and upgrade the old building to continue to be suitable. And actually, if you're looking at building a building of that size for that purpose, in the current cost of building public infrastructure, it's like you could build something new for that money, or you could rebuild what you got. And I'm actually like, when you've got a heritage architecture that so well suits its purpose like that, I'm like, spend the money on fixing it.
Right.
But so they had already planned it, and yet there was still some talk about whether the city would take over that building, whether they'd be able to still host science content there, if there was a possibility, because there's always a possibility when something's not happening for a few more years down the road, that like there'd be a new branch plant science center downtown, like Science Center on the Lake, and the old science center would still be there. That was all up in the air until one day you've got it in front of you. Was it May, June? I'm trying to remember. It's been a bit.
It's been about, I think it was May.
Yeah. They just up and closed it one day. Like there was a wedding,
like no notice
scheduled
at all, right?
for the weekend,
Right.
and they're like, "Sorry, nope, you can't do it." There was the summer camps were about to start the following week. All those guys got told, "Sorry, there's no summer camps being held
maybe
here."
It was June.
There was like school groups in the building who were like left, right? So it must have been June, right?
Right.
In a real hurry. And what they said was, the roof's about to collapse. Like, we got an engineering report. It says it's not safe to keep it open. And so we had to like immediately evacuate. It was like the day they announced it, right? Like, closed as of right now. Like, please
Effective
get out.
immediately.
If you have tickets for something tomorrow, you cannot come.
Right.
They started erecting fences. Like in the middle of the afternoon, they got all this construction fencing. Like this is a toxic waste zone. Do not approach. Right.
Right.
And so now when you look at the actual engineering report, and I'm not an expert, but lots of experts have looked at it, it didn't say the roof is about to collapse on anybody who's inside right now, today. What they did say is that some sections of the roof, a small portion of it, are in such poor condition that if there was like a serious, like overwhelming snowfall on it, or some heavy
This reminds me of George
weight
Bell
on it,
Arena.
that it could collapse, right? Pieces of it could collapse, but we're not talking about the roof caving in. We're talking about like a tile or something falling down, like pieces of it starting to come across, and those parts which are like less than 10%. I don't have in front of me. I think like 7% sticks in my mind, but it was in that needed sort of to be fixed immediately, but they can be fixed while the rest of the building remains open, right? This is
we have some time before the next snowfall.
Cordon off a portion of the room or a section under that and say, please don't walk here while we're fixing it. And then much of the rest of the roof would need to be replaced over the next few years, right? To be safe. And it's, partly the condition of it is the type of concrete that they used when they were building it, which was common at the time, but which turns out to have vulnerabilities. A lot of schools in England were closed for similar reasons when they discovered the vulnerability of this type of roofing material. Okay, fair enough. So they just closed it down and basically said, we're going to have like a series of, we're looking for a temporary venue to host some of the programming that used to be at the Science Center. And in the meantime, while we're looking for a temporary venue, this is frankly impossible to find a big enough building to host anything like what the Science Center was hosting, even if you had like a year to set it up or 2 years to set it up.
Right.
The Science Center, like one thing people might overlook is just how massive that building is, like just the square footage of it. It is very large. In a piece I wrote, I had some comparisons to other buildings, and I have it in front of me now, and I don't remember what those comparisons were, but it's much larger than the ROM. It's much larger than the AGO. As a museum space goes, it's just massive. So anyway, they're not looking for anything like that. And the new space at Ontario Place is not going to be big like that. But they are like looking to have rotating exhibits there. So as you say, at Cloverdale Mall or Gerrard Square or something, you could wind up with like a little mini Science Center exhibit or something. The city of Toronto tried to save it. They tried to see if there's some way they could legally force the province to continue operating the Science Center there, or if they could take it over. Although the people who really wanted the city to take it over, wanted the province to continue paying the bills, which is, that's never going to be an easy sell. Like, Dad, instead of selling the car or junking it, how about you give it to me? Well, possibly, son. And continue to pay for all the maintenance and gas. Yeah, not so much. But the city staff also says that given the city's financial position, they're not in a position to take that on and adequately assume the financial liability of being responsible for maintaining and fixing up that building and operating it. And so they're not doing that. And so, again, it winds up in I think there's a lot of people in the city who, even if the Science Center is not going to be housed there anymore, think that building itself is worth saving for some public or civic purpose. That it's a significant enough building and actually perfectly built for its environment. You cannot build housing there. It's in a floodplain on a ravine and all of that. So you can build housing up on the parking lot, which the city had already planned to do. The city owns the parking lot, had already planned to put housing on parts of that parking lot and develop it. But the actual location of the Science Center itself, there are not a lot of other things that you could easily put there. And you've got this big building that the architect said he designed to last 200 years.
Right.
Is only 50 years into its lifespan. And needs some work, as every 50-year-old building does.
Right.
But I'm not convinced that if you tear that down and build something else there, it's going to come out to be cheaper than maintaining and fixing this building we have.
Well, Ed, you're being rather kind. I think it smells because here's what we know, and I know you're here to help me make sure I don't get my facts wrong here. But we have a government that wanted to move the Science Center to Ontario Place. This is a rather, it depends who you talk to, but it's a controversial decision to build the private spa at Ontario Place. And I know I was at Trillium Park today because I can't even bike into Ontario Place right now because it's closed because they're working on it and doing stuff in there. But we have this decision that's unpopular in some places, especially in Toronto, the decision to move the Science Center to Ontario Place. And all of us, it seems awfully convenient, that, the roof needs repairs, so boom, let's do it like a Band-Aid. They throw up the fences, they kick everybody out, and that Science Center is no more. I think something smells rotten here. This all this timing, it just seems like this is something's not making sense. Why not just repair the roof?
The challenge is trying to figure out what the rotten thing is, right? Because and you can find easily that developers whose names have shown up when it comes to the highways, when it comes to the Greenbelt, when it comes to so many other files, had recently bought property near the Ontario Science Center and all of that. Okay, fine. And it seemed convenient when Doug Ford announced the Ontario Line subway is going to start at Ontario Place. Or it's going to start, let's say, at the Ontario Science Center and end at Ontario Place. And you might say, why that corner of Don Mills and Eglinton or wherever it is? Why that corner? And he'd say, because Ontario Place is there. And other people would say, look at the developers who recently bought land right at that corner. And near that corner, they're the ones who are going to profit. All of that you can see the motives for, right?
Right.
How does that land become more valuable if you close the only cultural attraction that draws people there? I don't understand that, right? I don't understand what else he wants to do with that site.
It's got to do with Ontario Place,
right.
like having it at Ontario Place instead of Science Center. That's where that's where you do your sniffing,
right? But he was already going to move it down there, right?
But this,
I mean, that definitely makes sense. Is that he wants to justify
this sort of gets
the third
rid of
thing by-
the whole discourse of save our
Yeah.
science center and keep it where it is.
It does do that. I think actually the timing, my own strong suspicion is that the timing of this and the doing it in a hurry was to short circuit any save the Ontario Science Center movement to like, if we're going to do it in 3 years, do it now and do it in a way that makes it irreversible.
Right.
But I don't think, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think they're going to be able to like act to immediately tear down the old building or anything, right? Like the city has an
I'm writing
interest
this
in that.
down
The city
so I
is
can
a
read it back to you.
owner of that, a part owner of that property in the Toronto Region Conservation. Like there's,
But just sorry for everything. But the Ontario Science Center is owned by the province, so that building is owned by the province, right? I know you're not 100%
the
sure.
entity, the Ontario Science Center organization, the brand,
Right.
the operation of the thing, is owned by the province. They have a lease on the land with the city and another organization. Now, I believe the province may own the building. The province almost certainly built the building. I haven't read the terms of the lease closely enough to know if the city could insist on having the building returned to them with their whatever. But yeah, I mean, if they send bulldozers in and start plowing over that building soon, we're going to know something bigger is up because
keep your
other
eye on
people
that property. Who's watching
have
that
certainly expressed an interest in figuring out a way to save it.
I guess Ed, what I'm wondering is, again, and it sounds like this is impossible, but can the city repair the roof? I guess it's not their building to repair. This is what I'm trying to understand. Like, can the city repair the roof and have the Toronto Science Center there?
They could, from what I understand, and Doug Ford has given every indication that he would morally support them or like allow that. He thinks the city, he has said the city's going to figure out what's going to happen there after the Science Center leaves. They already had an agreement in principle that the city would run cultural programming in the old building after the province left, after the Ontario Science Center left.
Right.
He keeps saying, they say, what's going to happen to this building now that you moved it out? And he says, well, that's up to the city, right? The city's going to decide what happens here next. And so far, that's all the indications is that the Toronto could run the Toronto Science Center there. The question is whether the city of Toronto now wants to put its money where its nostalgia is, where its sentiments are, and actually pay to operate that building and renovate it themselves. But it is certainly possible. Or we've been given every indication that it's possible. And even the premier, for everything else he's done, keeps saying, what happens there next is up to the city. We're going to let the city run some culturing program there. They're going to run some science center programming there. Maybe they'll make it a community center. That's going to be up to the city.
See, so when I see a church burning down in Paris, for example, then I read about rich Parisian people and corporations coughing up here's a lot of money to rebuild that church because it's important to us to have that church. And I would think that putting some repairs, not just the roof, but maybe bringing it up to 2024 standards, the Ontario Science Center, and opening an amazing Toronto Science Center there, I think there would be money beyond the public coffers.
Yeah, and if you have people who are in that philanthropy tax bracket listening, a bunch of people did step up.
Of course I do, Ed.
A bunch of people did step up immediately when it was being closed and say,
yeah,
I'll foot the bill for the immediate roof repairs required, right? Or I'll chip in $1 million. I'll chip in $500,000, right? There was quite a lot of offers like that, and they were not taken up. But if some of those people actually really loved this building and love its purpose and all of that, wanted to fundraise to rehabilitate that building and do it with the city of Toronto, I think Toronto City Council, Toronto City Government, the mayor of Toronto would probably embrace that. The under the Gardner Park there, the Bentway,
which I love,
was funded with private philanthropy, right? And it was somebody saying, we need to do something underneath the Gardner Expressway here, and we have a shortage of parkland and recreational space down in this part of the city.
Yes.
So I will put up a bunch of dollars and help set up a private,
skating
ongoing
rink
source
and all this
of
good
revenue
stuff.
and everything
Right.
for the benefit of the city, and that was embraced by John Tory and the city government, and I think a massive philanthropic rescue project for the Science Center building and the Science Center, the part that building plays in the city. Like I think there's potential there, but it probably needs to be led by those civic leaders, right? The
Well, I'm
people
gonna
with
be
the
making
cash
some calls
have
then.
to come forward and say,
Right.
we've got $500 million. We're going to give it to the city on this condition that it gets used for this, right?
Okay, so now I'm thinking. We would be fine as a city if this were the MasterCard Science Center. You know what I mean? And that they helped finance this, and it was educating, especially on that, because I know I'm a West End guy. You're a West End guy too.
Yeah.
Science Center's far away. Like I'm biking to Ontario Place all the time, every day.
Yeah.
It's an easy little bike ride, but going to Ontario Place is a whole thing. It's a whole trek, and I'm conscious of the fact that there are people who live east of Yonge Street in this city. Did you know that, Ed?
And a lot of the ones who live closest to the Ontario Science Center, I mean, you've got Flemington Park there. You've got Thorncliffe Park. Not affluent communities. A lot of newcomers to Canada live in that neighborhood. A lot of people who are struggling live in that neighborhood, and a lot of young families, a lot of children, right? And this is the one thing that's close to them, and it's the one thing that also, like, I have a friend, Rudy, who is he's a paramedic now. He's a EMT, like a ambulance driver and paramedic. But he came here as a child from Poland, fleeing with his mother, fleeing the country. Yep. And they settled across the street in an apartment building just across the street from the Ontario Science Center. And he said, I was at a party with him the day they closed it. And we were talking about taking our kids there and all of that. And he said, but it's like, I miss taking my kids there. But, his youngest daughter's 11 now. So she's, you're getting past the age where you really need to find stuff to take your kids to. But he said, but when I was growing up, like, we had almost no money. And we didn't get to do a lot of stuff. But it was right across the street. And it used to be, at least at that time, it was like free after 5 on weekdays. And it was from 5 to 7 or something, like, until it closed. So it was like after school.
Right.
Just for a couple hours, right? But he said, I would go there multiple times a week. And he said, for a big portion of my life, that was, without exaggeration, my very favorite place in the entire world.
I get
right?
chills hearing this.
And so I don't know how many kids there are who live in that neighborhood today who it plays a similar role for, but I have to think of some. If it's not their very favorite place in the world, it's like an amenity of their community, which it's not a community. Like, these are like strong communities in some ways, but they are communities that lack a lot of resources and a lot of the sort of the types of neighborhood amenities that make a neighborhood that rich people like to have in their neighborhood. They don't have a lot of those things, and yet they have this place, right? And these kids have it, and now they don't anymore. And so, yeah, as you said, as West End guys, it's a trek for us to get out there, but there are people for whom it's actually pretty convenient location.
No, right, and I always think that those people in that neighborhood, it's a trek for them that everything's in the West End. The ROM is in the West, like everything. The ROM. My 2 kids were at the ROM yesterday, by the way. The ROM, the Art Gallery of Ontario, now Ontario Place, like that's all West End stuff. So just thought, okay, good chat there. Interesting to see what happens. Like, will it be a kiosk at the Cloverdale Mall or as you said, Gerrard Square? Stay tuned. But as that story, that great story you shared, that's not enough. That's insufficient. It's not going to work, okay? You can't leave your kid from 5 to 7. We're going to leave him at the kiosk, okay? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, here, again, we're going to bounce around here. A lot of notes I want to get to. One, this is from today, and I know you've been on vacation, so you're off the hook on knowing the details, except to say, I was reading today about how most Ontario 7-Elevens are going to offer booze for takeout and in-store drinking. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about my buddy Joe. We used to play box. We called it wall ball.
Yeah, yeah.
And
We used to call that game Burby.
Yes, we had. I think. Do we
Yeah.
have this chat?
Maybe we did.
Wait, were you raised in the East End?
East End, yeah.
East End. Burby?
Burby, yeah.
Okay, so we called it wall ball here. Sometimes we called it box. Same game.
I have some. My in-laws call it French,
that I've never heard.
which might be a like bourbon, Burby, French
Oh.
as a like it may be related to East End thing because
maybe.
these are East York roots people who call it French. But yeah,
The Butlers are from East York. Rob and Rich. You
there
know,
you go.
they both.
We should
both-
ask them what they call it.
I should. I was just had Rich Butler on the program when I was at Christie Pitts 2 times ago, and he almost batted. He was going to. So on the last day of the IBL season, Rich Butler was sitting at something close to a batting average of. I want to say close to like 500. Okay, something.
Wow.
It's former Toronto Blue Jay. He's playing in the IBL, and that would be the IBL record.
And
it
is
was-
he the player manager?
No, that's Rob.
Oh, okay, that's Rob.
Rob
Okay,
doesn't play
we were
though.
talking about
He's
Rich.
just the manager.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Rich, but the record was held by Rob. This
Okay.
is the wild story.
Yeah.
So Rob Butler had the IBL record for average in a season with minimum number of at-bats. And Rich is on the last day of the season has the record. And the manager goes to Rich and says, "Do you want to sit out this game? You've got the IBL." And Rich is like, "No, man, I want to play." And Rich tells the story. I think he went 1 for 4. He got robbed by an amazing defensive play by the opposition that robbed him of a hit. And it all, at the end of the day, when the numbers were crunched, if that ball that he had hit for a single had not been snared by a great defensive play, he would have had the record, but he ended up missing out
Like
on
a
the record.
point short or
yeah,
something.
like a point short or something like that. And it reminds me, just on a quick tangent, it reminds me of Ted Williams, the last time a player in Major League Baseball batted 400. Ted Williams was sitting at like 401 or something on the last, it was a doubleheader last game of the season. They did a lot more doubleheaders back then. And they said, "Ted, do you want to sit? You've got a 400 average." And Ted's like, "No, I'm playing. Like, I want to play ball." And that doubleheader, he went something like, don't quote me, but something like 4 for 6 or something, and ended up finishing at 406 or something.
Yeah,
So
like he improved his average.
it improved his
Yeah.
average, but he could have easily, gone down to 399 or something like that, and then didn't hit 400. But just those stories. And then I always think of Robbie Alomar for the Toronto Blue Jays, one of the later seasons of the Blue Jays. He played 5 years here, but he was sitting at 299.9 or something. So it was like going to be rounded up to be an average of 300. And he sat that last day of the season to keep his 300 average.
Yeah. Like
Boo! It's okay to boo Robbie Alomar.
no,
for that
yeah,
one.
it's actually a happy occasion to boo Robbie Alomar now, I guess, as it's happened.
Well, then
but,
quick, because I'm all over the place. Except I've been waiting for you. It's been 4 months since I saw you, but I had Joey Bats on the program since we last got. Jose Batista was on Toronto Mike.
holy cow!
And I was talking to him about the Ted Rogers statue outside the Dome. It really pisses me off that we have a statue of Ted Rogers. If I go to Scotiabank Arena, I can say, "Hey, Mats.
Yeah.
Hey, Wendell. Hey, Dougie." I can even go back Teeter Kennedy. You can go back to older players too. Of course, Johnny Bauer's there. All these Leaf greats are just there outside Scotiabank Arena, and it's amazing. But if I go to the Dome, it's Ted Rogers,
Like-
the seagulls on his head.
I do not understand it.
None of it makes sense. But I had Joe
Like
Carter.
put the Rogers statue out front of Raj Mahal there on where is it, Jarvis?
Jarvis and Blue or
Like
whatever the
put
hell that
this
is.
Ted Rogers
Yeah.
statue there if you want to put a statue.
So, but then I have Joey Bats on, and I said, "Joey," so I'm thinking in my mind, there's 2 statues we should do yesterday. The first statue is Joe Carter.
Yeah.
Maybe he's jumping up after he's touching them all, maybe after
Yeah.
the walk-off. And then the second one, give me the Joey Bats bat flip.
bat flip,
Right?
yeah.
Can you picture these? And these
Oh,
are outside the
absolutely.
Dome. But then I was thinking, because I love the Alomar after he hits the home run off Eckersley
Yeah,
in
yeah.
92. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. And then this is where I go with it. I think, okay, I know that's not going to happen. He's literally banned from Major League Baseball. We will not see Robbie Alomar at any official events with the Dome or the team ever again. And then I'm like, because he did. And then I realized, we actually have never been told. Like, we don't know what happened. We just know, trust us, it's
It was
bad
some
enough he's
sort
banned
of
from baseball.
harassment issue. Yeah.
Isn't that, but is it, I can't think of another situation. Not that I'm not saying we need to know or whatever, but I can't think of a comparable where a player, let's
Where
face
the
it, we all think
details
he's-
are not known.
and he's, let's face it, you and I said, hey, who's the best position player in Blue Jay history? We don't hesitate, right? We
Yeah,
both
yeah.
say Alomar.
Yeah.
I think we all do. And we know he's never going to be seen at the Dome again. And I saw him in 2015, but I'll never see him again there. And we know that it's because he's banned from Major League Baseball. we actually don't have no clue, nothing leaked. We don't know what he did. Just that it's bad enough Major League Baseball investigated and banned him from baseball. But I can't think of a comparable. I can't think of any other player.
The Blue Jays unretired his number, took him off the Wall of Honor.
They peeled him off.
Erased him from
100%.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get a statue. But I was thinking that'd be cool if things had turned out differently for Robbie Alomar. But we do need the Joe Carter statue, and we need the Joey Bats statue.
Yeah, and the
yesterday.
Joey Bats statue, in the list of things you make statues of in sports, it would be an oddity because they didn't win the World Series there that year. It wasn't like, I mean, if you were going to put
ALDS,
the first Raptors statue outside Rogers Center in Jurassic Park there near Legends Row for the Leafs could be
Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi's shot. I mean, you would think if you were just going to put a statue of one guy.
Although it could be Kyle Lowry. Like
I was going to say, if you were just going to put a statue of one guy, you would probably put Kyle because he's the heart and soul of that franchise for so long through the DeMar DeRozan years.
But if you're looking for a moment, you've got.
But
Kawhi.
If you were looking for a moment in that one run, the shot, right? That like maybe the crouching afterwards with
100%.
But that's the moment, right? But they
100%.
won.
Right.
The thing about the bat flip is that it lives so large and is such a moment. It is such a moment. Everybody remembers it, and yet it wasn't even a World Series game.
It wasn't even an ALCS game.
Not only did we not win the World Series, we didn't even make it to the World Series.
100%. It's all comes back to Dalton Pompey. But I will say this. I will say that it is by far the biggest moment for Blue Jay fans since Joe Carter's walk-off, right? And then, because I'm on these kayaks now and I'm bike riding, so I'm thinking of all this stuff. And then I realize, oh shit, Shapiro, who's current president of the team, Mark Shapiro, isn't going to celebrate the bat flip because it happened. He's an Alex Anthopoulos guy, and that's like the last season Alex Anthopoulos was the GM, okay? So this is my thought on it. Okay, so Joe Carter, maybe they could do that because that's long enough that they, but you don't want fans to look at 2015 and that hype train and the bat flip and say, oh, remember that team? I fucking love that team, and that was an exciting team.
Whatever
you don't want
happened
fans to do that.
team?
And then you realize, oh yeah, late in that season, Ted Rogers hires Mark Shapiro, and then Alex Anthopoulos quits basically because he wanted to have some autonomy, and he left, and then he went and won a World Series somewhere else. And then he brought Shapiro brings in Atkins, who he worked with in Cleveland, and the rest is history. And now we have a bad baseball team that's going to finish. Maybe they'll get 75 wins. Who knows? And they're in some trouble next season.
If you told me that this team 3 years ago, if you told me this team was going to be bad. Like I am shocked at what's happened. The future just seems so bright.
Well, we said, okay, we got Vladdy here, we got Bo Bichette, we have some other great parts. And then Bichette went south this season. So goodbye, Bo.
Yeah.
And now you got Vladdy. And as we know from the Carlos Delgado era, he's great. But as we know, we had Halladay and Delgado for, I don't know, a decade at least, and did nothing. We never played meaningful games in September because you can't be a successful baseball team with one position player and one great pitcher. It takes more. This was quite the tangent, but I feel better having had this Jays chat with you.
But okay, so
because I'm going to come back.
I admit I missed the episode, but what did Joey Bats say about statues?
He said he would love it.
Yeah,
he would love it.
And you know what? Never mind. I'm just trying to think of some kind of ceremony where like as his is unveiled, they rip down that Ted Rogers statue.
That's
like move it up.
I think that's going to be us fans. We're going to have to put the Ted Rogers statue in the lake. Like, I think we're going to have to all get together one night and just take it down, sort of like when you topple dictator statues, right? When democracy returns or whatever. We're going to have to... And Ted Rogers did great things for the city. I'm not anti-Ted Rogers. But if he's the only statue, we're doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong. We're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, we agree. Okay. Just quickly on this note, 7-Elevens are offering... That's where we were.
Yeah, this is how we got into this
so
stuff,
7-Eleven. So much has happened in the booze world since you were last here. And again, you were on vacation.
Yeah.
But I did read also today that Doug Ford visited 7-Eleven HQ just before the pandemic. Like, that's been documented in the newspaper today. And it all smells again.
So it's time to have the wine seltzer Slurpees. are coming up, right?
Right. Oh yeah, that's how I got into baseball. My buddy Joe and I would play wall ball. See, this is how we got on the tangent. I mentioned wall ball, but and shout out to Joe from TO. Post box, we would go to 7-Eleven and get the biggest fucking Slurpees. Like that's what we did.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine drinking a Slurpee today, to be honest. Like my stomach's rotting just thinking about it. But we drink the biggest freaking Slurpees. And yeah, what's next is vodka Slurpees are on the horizon because you'll be able to drink in the 7-Eleven and take out booze. And it seems like the plan for Doug and his PC government is just to make where alcohol can be everywhere.
So I haven't read the story. But by the way, I had a Slurpee this past weekend.
What
probably
flavor?
for the first time in, I don't know, a decade or
That's
more.
amazing.
Because after the opening ceremonies of the London Games, we had to march through like an hour of summer, 33-degree heat with humidity and all of that.
Yeah.
And so the girls were like, can we stop at 7-Eleven on the way back to the residence? And I said, sure, I guess. And then they were all getting Slurpees, and I was going to just get like a soda, or I was going to get like
a Gatorade or something.
Gatorade. I did actually. They had Gatorade was like 2 for. It was like not even a good deal. It was like 2 for $7 or something. And and I was like had 2 things of Gatorade, and I was walking up with them. And as I was passing the Slurpee machine, I thought, why am I not getting a Slurpee like the girls? And it was very refreshing, like sickly sweet.
Yeah.
Did I have Mountain Dew Baja Blast or something like that? I had some kind of like pop Slurpee, but it was actually very refreshing for the heat I was in. I actually needed it.
So while
and
you're
it's baseball
drinking it-
related too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't hate any of the stuff Doug Ford is doing around booze liberalization. I think the convenience stores should be allowed to sell beer and wine. I've been arguing that for 20 years, back when I used to drink beer and wine, and all long since I stopped drinking beer and wine, I have thought, why not do that? I think you should be able to drink booze in parks. I've been saying that all along. I think you should be able to walk with an open container. I think a lot of other things could be liberalized and should be, and I understand why Doug Ford wants to champion those issues. I do not understand why we're spending the amounts of money he is doing to do it in a rush. I do not understand why he wants to make it his sole identity, right? Like, I think if he put half the effort he puts into booze into a lot of other issues, we would be far out ahead. I mean, this would have been more like, you could gradually allow these things to happen. Now, I know he did go down and have this meeting with the 7-Eleven people. It's like, is there some, so I haven't read this story this morning, but is there some sweetheart element of this deal for 7-Eleven that is not available to other convenience stores and grocery stores? Like,
right, like some preferential treatment for 7-Eleven.
Yeah. I mean, because I know he had the meeting, and I don't know if he was just trying to say, hey, did you notice we're liberalizing the booze sales, and convenience stores like the ones you operate are now going to be allowed?
But
if this is a different deal for them, I don't know.
But the money he's spending to fast track this.
Yeah.
I mean, even the beer store deal.
Absurd.
Right? So, I mean, again, something smells. Like why? There must be a reason. Then you find out about these meetings, be it with Loblaw or if it's with 7-Eleven and stuff, and then you start, I'm still thinking of the Staples MTO kiosks. Is that what it was, if I remember that one correctly?
And if people want to know what they could be doing with the money that they're spending to fast track this. So the deal that basically is ultimately going to kill the beer store. Mark, in 2 or 3 years, there will not be any beer stores left, or there will be almost no beer stores left. It's like that chain, the writing is on the wall. And so the payouts to the beer store companies and then other subsequent payouts to these other companies that come with this, if it adds up to $1 billion, as many members of the opposition and people at the Star have tried to calculate, is going to be, like, just to give you a sense of perspective, like, when they announced that they were going to speed up construction on the Gardiner Expressway and it would open a year earlier than it otherwise would be, which is a significant reduction in the timetable. That was like about $1 billion, right? It's like it's not $1 billion to me seems like a crazy amount of money, but even in provincial government terms, it's like you can do a lot with it, right? We built the Shepherd subway line for $1 billion. And so there's a lot of priority. Doug Ford keeps saying housing is his highest priority, and he keeps justifying all kinds of other things on housing terms.
Right.
And yet we're lagging behind. Housing starts in Ontario are lagging behind Alberta, lagging behind BC, right? Like the Toronto and province of Ontario are falling further behind the rest of this country in housing starts. If it is the kind of priority he said it could be, how about he goes and starts building with $1 billion? You get a few thousand units out of that. You get probably 10,000 units out of that at least. You could give them to the city. You could give them to a nonprofit. You could just sell them to the people. But like, there's a lot of things you could do with that money. And in 1 year, we would have beer and wine in corner stores anyway.
Right.
This is like, we just sped up by 1 year.
Right. Like, yeah, there's something, I don't know, something smells. That's all.
In fact, sorry, I got this wrong, because the Gardner Expressway speed up is only like $200 million.
Okay, we
right?
could have
It's
done
like
that 5 times.
It's like, but yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
that, you could speed up the Gardner Expressway construction for 1 year,
Right.
for way less money than you can speed up beer and wine going to corner stores in 1 year. And I don't understand what we're even buying with that money.
Dude, if you don't know, we're all in big trouble here. So just stay on it. This is why we need
I know what he
good
thinks he's
journalist
buying,
outlets like
which
the
is,
Toronto Star.
like he thinks he's buying goodwill so he can have an early election and have, just keep this. We brought it in sooner, but it's just like, I don't know it. I know a lot of people. I understand why the buck of beer and all of that, why booze. And I mean, Doug Ford claims to not drink alcohol either.
Right, that's
and I
correct.
have never encountered any reason to doubt that he's being completely honest about that.
Right.
But I understand why he thinks for the people he wants to like him and vote for him, this is going to be a popular issue. But I don't know a single person for whom this is a top priority. I know lots of people who agree on the issue, but I don't know anybody who argues that it's the most important thing to put our foot on the gas pedal for.
So we'll keep our eye on this story. You'll be back in a couple of months, and we'll see what's new. Now, as I told you, I like to bike to Ontario Place. I now have a kayak, so at some point when I've built up my paddling stamina, I'm going to paddle to the island. But one thing I've always wanted, and this has kind of been in the news lately, is I've always wanted a way to bike to the Toronto Island. Like, this has been my fantasy. I'm going to be able to bike to the island. And I think we talked at some point, there's a way to walk to the airport, but you can't get to the Toronto Island. But what do you say about this fantasy of mine? We could do that for $1 billion, right?
Maybe. I don't know what the final bill would be.
But why can't I bike to the island?
We're going to find out what it would cost, because the city is actually now, city staff didn't want to look at it. They didn't want to, and there was lots of city councilors who didn't really want to look closely at this. It's too expensive. It's unfeasible. Okay, so here's the thing. Yeah. There is a tunnel that goes to the island airport. That's a very short, that previously was, and I think still is, if you're taking your car over to go into the parking lot on the island side, which maybe you're still allowed to do. My wife once went over to that island airport to ride in a helicopter for something. It was like a business related thing that she got hired to do something, and she took her car over on that little ferry. But that was like the world's shortest ferry ride, right?
Yeah,
the ferry barely moves because you could almost throw a ball across. There's that tunnel, but it goes into the airport.
Right.
And there's no way to get from the airport onto the islands. It's fenced off. The runways are in the way.
Like, you can't even bring your kayak to the airport and then kayak to the island.
Then there's the ferry docks, which you can take your bike on the ferries to Hanlan's or Wards.
Of course.
But that's often a clown show, a chaotic shit show there.
Especially on a nice Saturday.
Weekend. And we don't have as many ferries as we should, and the replacement ferries are not coming anytime soon. And the ferries are, like, if you've been to New York and taken the Staten Island ferry, which is like a part of the New York's public transit system, it's like massive, it's fast.
It's free, right? Is that free?
I've heard from people, yes, it's free. Yeah. I've heard from people in European cities that there are many ferry services that are much bigger boats. They're faster loading boats.
Right.
They They travel faster. Like we don't have anything like that on the horizon, right? Even the new boats we are going to get are kind of like the old-fashioned, same loading. Like, okay, now out near Cherry Beach and Ward's Island, there's also a fairly narrow gap. And you can, if you stand out there, imagine a bridge crossing it. I have heard from people, especially the people who live on the island, but to be fair, lots of other people to say it's a bit of a fantasy scenario because, like, first of all, there's enough shipping traffic, enough boat traffic through there to access the harbor that you would either need a lift bridge or you would need like a skyway bridge. Right. And for pedestrians and cyclists, if this is going to be a bridge that cars are not allowed on, a skyway doesn't work. You can't like have people on wheelchairs or on their bikes, going up at that angle. So there are people there who say a kind of a floating bridge, which is kind of like an alternative to a lift bridge. Like it can move out of the way to let ships through. Like, anyhow, the city's going to study it. But I think it's long past time that there be either a fixed link, and I don't think anybody really wants cars on the island. Nobody's arguing for we should be able to drive over there and let's pave all those houses and make a parking lot or anything like that. It's more like you should be able to walk or ride your bike across. Right. And if not that, they need a better boat option. They need something. So they had to be dragged kicking and screaming into it, but we're actually going to get some reports that talk about those options and actually talk about what it would cost or what the obstacles to constructing it are. I know that there's a lot of people who live on the island. There's actually not a lot of people who live on the island. There are people who live on the island who are not all that enthusiastic about their quaint little cottage neighborhood becoming the front door of the islands for tens of thousands of visitors. To which I got to say, tough luck.
You chose to live in the biggest city in the country.
Yeah. Right? And you've got waterfront property that you got for...
I don't feel sorry for those people at all, Ed.
$200,000 or something they paid for their house. Right. And it's been a oasis. I understand what a drag is going to be to make it more crowded. I'm not all that sympathetic. People talk about also the parking issues at Cherry Beach. Maybe that's going to be an issue. They talk about transit options to get to a potential entrance at Cherry Beach. Again, I want to see the reports. I want to see the information about what are the actual obstacles? What would this actually look like? What are the environmental implications? Because I think it's kind of a crime that we have this magnificent park and we make it almost intentionally difficult to get to. A lot of people do talk about, though, and I hope this is part of the reports or the studies, is there a way to use that island tunnel to also access, right now, there's no way to walk from the airport into the parkland part of it. And from what I've being shown quickly on a map of where you enter, it's okay, I can see there's a whole airport in the way. It's not just there's a gate that they need to open. It's actually you have to walk across the runway or whatever, right? Right. But is there a way to remodel the airport or somehow have under a pedestrian pathway that gets you there? Because it just does seem crazy. Yeah. That what a lot of people would say is Toronto's Central Park or something, right? And it is a magnificent park. It is got a lot of beautiful things there, a lot to do there.
Amusement park.
The beaches, the amusement park, the
Island Cafe
everything.
Will be rebuilt.
We just need to make it easier for people to get to it.
Right.
By whatever means necessary.
Right. Okay. So they've got a report coming, and at some point you'll be back here to tell us what the report says.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a commitment. All right. This is I read the Toronto Star. I love what Ed Keenan writes for the Toronto Star. How are things going at the Toronto Star?
I think they're going fairly well.
Well, you got the whole podcast thing being revamped. That's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just won the Missioner Award, which is the highest award in public service journalism for the Greenbelt investigation.
Awesome.
like a team at the Star won that. I was not a part of that team, but I really applaud what they're doing. They won a bunch of other significant awards recently. I mean, without sharing I don't know, we have these town hall meetings where like financial results and stuff are shared with us on the condition that they not be like, we're not supposed to be live tweeting or sharing the specific numbers or the whatever information, right? So I don't know what specifics I'm supposed to share or not. But financially,
I'm not fixing this in post. I'm just
in a
warning you
much
now.
no, that's fine. Financially, we're in a much stronger position than we were, say, 2 years ago. Much more encouraging news on both the subscription fronts, the revenue fronts, on our balance sheet. Like things are looking much more positive than they have in quite a while, and so I don't think by any means that means like we've solved the problems, the financial problems of journalism, or that the news could be bad again soon. But things both on an editorial front and a financial front, as I understand it, are more encouraging than they have been in quite a while. And I got to say, the new editor-in-chief, Nicole McIntyre, is like I am exceedingly happy. Like, at the risk of sounding like I'm kissing up, I just think she's an excellent journalist, an excellent boss. But she's also somebody that like motivates people. I think the staff really likes her and is ready to get out and kick ass for her. And so, all of that stuff is going very well.
Good to hear. Now, I recently joined your 50 club. I'm in the 50 club.
Yay, welcome.
So we had a big party at Great Lakes Brewery late June, and it was just awesome to see David Ryder there. And I'm wondering, because I'm curious, do you ever interact with David Ryder? Like, do you guys?
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
So I have an office I have a desk in the City Hall bureau at City Hall, in the Stars bureau at City Hall, and I work there, 1 or 2 days a week or something. I work from home sometimes. I go to the Stars main office sometimes. So David Ryder continues to have a desk at the Stars City Hall bureau, even though he is no longer the City Hall bureau chief. He is now our senior political reporter, I think. I'm trying to remember the title, but it's senior politics reporter or something like that, where he's sort of still writing about city stuff, but also provincial stuff and federal stuff, and maybe where they overlap in ways that make it hazy which beat they're on. He's doing a lot of enterprise work there and stuff. But we still see each other, summer vacations have interfered with it, but typically we see each other a few times a week. And
Amazing.
We're in communication almost every day.
Okay, I'm just curious.
But yeah, no, he's a dynamite guy and a dynamite journalist.
You know who was at Christie Pitts on Sunday and popped on the mic for a catch-up? Ben Rayner.
Oh yeah, that's great. How's Ben doing?
Well, Ben is he's now a divorced dad, so he's a little sad about that. He was telling me about that on the record, and but he's so madly in love with his daughter, and his daughter got to run the bases that day, and she had a great time Excellent. At the Diamond. So Ben, I have a lot of time for Ben Rayner.
Among the other things, and like Ben and I are two of these people who are like I don't know him very well. And we always had all these people in common because I worked at iWeekly and he was a music critic, and so right. and just in general, our social circles, there was a ton of overlap in the Venn diagram, but right. For the longest time I never even met him, and then we worked our time at the Star overlap for a while too, but he was legendary at the Star for among the other things he may be legendary for in the world. But for the messiness of his desk. Just there was a photograph of it, and you cannot see the desk. You cannot barely see the chair in the middle of it.
Right.
And then one day it was cleaned up for him. Oh. It was like everything wound up in just bins or something like that.
Well, Ben's a good effort. We keep tabs on Ben and make sure he's good, but so he's getting over the separation, and then he's kind of adapting to that, but he's a great dad who's in love with his daughter, and he's working at a record shop, and living his best life. And the one thing I'll say about Ben is he's all about finding the secret beaches in this city. He loves to swim in the lake, and where I know where, I know where I look for the flags that they've tested this water.
Right. Yeah.
Okay?
Those are not the secrets.
Right.
Yeah.
Marie Curtis, Sunnyside. If I go out east, there's Ashbridges Bay. So there are these pockets, and of course on the Toronto Island, if I could get there easier. But Ben knows the secret. I don't know if he has his own testing kit. Like, I'm almost paranoid about it now, but he knows the secret beaches, and not just the one that was at Ontario Place. He knows when near Humber Bay Shores. He's got all these secret beaches.
We have reached the portion of the program where I need to take a quick break. So if you have, if you just,
you want me to play? Yeah, go ahead. I can vamp here for a little bit here. Absolutely here. So we have our quarterly with Ed Keenan. He was scheduled to be here in early July. It is now early. Is it still early or is it mid? But it's still early August. So we rescheduled this a few times. We moved the time a few times. It was quite the practice there to get this thing in the books. But here we are. Ed Keenan. He comes over here once a quarter. I'm a big fan of how Ed thinks, how Ed writes, and I love to have somebody here I can talk about all the things going on in not just municipal politics, but in the city, and be it provincially or federally or whatever. I know how I want to close this program, so I want to talk to Ed because I notice he still writes quite a bit about American politics. So as we know, Ed Keenan, he was coming on regularly, and then he went to Washington, D.C. to cover the Trump presidency. I suppose covering Rob Ford trained him for that. I don't know. But he was in D.C. for quite a while, and then he came back home, and that's why he's able to come here every quarter. But there's been a lot going on there, so I want to close with that. So Ed's now... Did you hit your head, Ed? No, he didn't. So Ed's now back. So
I have managed not to hit my head, but did you want to talk about...
Well, I do want to... There is news on
American
I'm going to close with that.
Okay.
But one last thing I want to talk about before we get to that. The last thing I want to talk about is, because as you know, I'm an avid, passionate cyclist, and I love cycling the city all over the place. And I'm always interested where there's new infrastructure, new bike lanes, where there's missing links. A cyclist was in the bike lane and then had to leave the bike lane because there was a dumpster parked in the bike lane. And sadly and tragically, this cyclist was hit by a truck and died. And the question that has been asked, I'm sure you've asked it because I read it, should the city be sued? Like, if a cyclist dies as a result of a dumpster in a bike lane, should the city be sued?
Yeah, or should the person who put the dumpster there without a permit be sued, right?
Right.
And as it turns out, the person who put the dumpster there, or the company that put the dumpster there without any permit to do so, without any permission to do so, block the bike lane, is now being charged with like bylaw offenses.
Which is like a $500 fine.
Yeah, and that... Like that's the only tool we have to enforce it, but
that can't be true. Like there must be a criminal charge if your actions lead to the death of somebody.
Where I live, near where I live, there's a couple popular restaurants on Annette Street, and they have constant DoorDash traffic, or Uber Eats or whoever. These delivery drivers, they pull up and they park in the bike lane consistently, every day.
Right.
And it's just not enforced at all. Now, this is not a separated bike lane with posts and stuff. This is like a paint on the road. And also, I've had friends who will pull over to let me off because I know somebody who lives on Annette Street there, and they'll pull over to let me off, and they start to pull into the bike lane. I say, just pull into somebody's driveway here, right? Like, we're only going to be here 2 seconds. And they say, oh, whatever. And it's like, I just don't want to kill somebody, right? For the sake of not driving around the corner or whatever, right? And I just think we should have police out there, just like you could get an automatic ticket every time. We should have a photo radar for if you stop your car blocking the bike lane, you get mailed a ticket for $100, $200. And if you kill somebody or participate in the circumstances that led to their death by making the bike lane unnavigable, there should be consequences for that, real consequences. And now we will find out if they will be charged with provincial offenses because, so the city can only enforce its own bylaws. And so the city can't put somebody in jail. They don't have criminal powers, right? But so this is where the police are investigating all of this and all of that. And they could be charged with some various things under provincial like laws which carry bigger fines or bigger consequences. I don't know if there's any chance that somebody would be charged criminally, like under federal law, but it does seem like the consequences should be real when you negligently or otherwise, like certainly, I have to think nobody contemplated that they would be contributing to somebody's death when they put this dumpster there, right?
Right.
There's no malice here. But what it does seem to me that there's a strong possibility that there's like negligence, right? That there is apart from the culpability of any individual people involved here or any corporate entities involved here, like quite aside from whatever that may turn out to be, I think the fact that you could do that, like, and not think about it is reflective of a broader kind of negligence society-wide where when we talk about bike lanes, and especially separated bike lanes, and I still have conversations with people about them who are really mad that they're going in all over the place, right? And some people who are kind of indifferent to them going on all over the place. And I talk about the ones on Bloor Street near High Park there that I ride on all the time now, which I was not a regular cyclist before moving to that neighborhood and realizing that I could get downtown faster and easier in those separated bike lanes, and I don't have to drive in traffic than I could. And so in middle age, I have become a regular cyclist when I never was before,
which was the whole idea. And I'll just shout out the Bloor bike lanes because I take them from like Aberfoyle to High Park all the time. They're amazing.
But when I talk to people about them and they say, yeah, but look at those lanes, like they take an entire car lane. Like how wide is your bike? Why do you need to have that much space? And I say, well, first of all, they get crowded because there's lots of bikes using them now. But second of all, it's like I need distance from you, right? And it doesn't actually ever sink into them that what we're talking about is like actually a safety issue.
Right.
Right? Like actually people die here. Actually people get injured all the time, right? The separation from the car doors, the separation from the cars themselves, like it's not just that we all need to get where we're going, it's that we all need to get there alive. And so when people pull over into the park lane and put on their hazard lights and run into the restaurant, I'm only going to be here 2 minutes. It's like, well, a bike is not going to sit there behind you waiting for 2 minutes until you move your car. They're going to pull out into traffic. The cars behind them are not expecting them to be doing that, especially given the infrastructure that's in place there, right? It's like, it's just making it more dangerous. And I think I don't want to take anything away from the discussion of the specifics of this person who died down near Bloor Street and the specifics of how that was built. But I think this is a symptom of, like, more broadly, even as the city has really sped up construction of bike lanes in a lot of places in a ways that I don't know that the complainers certainly appreciate how much it's been, like, they certainly understand, but I think a lot of cyclists are impatient for more to be done more quickly. But I'm impressed over what's happened over the last few years, but I don't think we still haven't caught up, and there's nowhere near the kind of enforcement you would expect.
Zero enforcement.
Yeah.
I know. But so I want to leave the bike lanes. Obviously, this is an evergreen topic. It'll come up again. But,
yeah.
And I know how I want to close in our last 15 minutes. But the one thing I'll say, because you reminded me, because I'm on those Annette bike lanes quite a bit myself, and they remind me of the Royal York bike lane, and that is it's just paint. And I don't understand why paint is sufficient for a bike lane anymore in 2024. Like the separated ones, we did this between Norris Crescent and First in this neck of the woods, and this all the paint bike lanes should be separated bike lanes.
Yeah, I mean, and not every street without massive reconstruction, not every street has the space to have the full cycle path, cycle track style separated lanes like there are on Bloor Street, say, where there's like a 1 foot of paint and posts, and then, you know, a wide bike lane that could accommodate almost a parked car in, and all of that. They're not a full lane of traffic, but you can still have a line of posts, right? Like with the paint, they only take up like 1.5 inches, and they provide a barrier that it's like, I mean, at the very least, if your car is drifting over, you get a thwack, 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 like,
Right.
and you understand that you're in the wrong.
I think just
spot.
psychologically having the post. I don't care if they're made of Jello.
No,
like
they're a visual sign, and they
Right.
like that rises up to the level of like your hood or whatever.
Right.
If you're a car driver, and it's far different. I mean, we have curbs in parking lots for a reason, because you could paint a line on the ground,
right.
but at a certain point is not entirely visible. It's not as clear as like something that sticks up, right? A physical barrier that both sticks up, and if your tires hit it, if your hood hits it, if you get too close to it.
Yeah. I know people are like, enough bike lane talk, but last sentence, and then we're moving on here. But the last sentence is, I'm just going to say, on Royal York, there's a part where, cars signal to turn left, and it's one lane on Royal York, and cars go around these cars that are signaling left to go the left-hand turn. Cars go around them by just going into the bike lane, and I see it all the time, and they often don't even check if there's a cyclist approaching. I've had a few close calls, and there will be a death on Royal York with that paint job at this part I'm thinking of right now. And there was one on the other side of the street, actually. Judson, I think, is the street I'm thinking of. Anyway, paint is not enough.
Before we move on, this is
Tears are not enough.
paint is not enough. Is that this is a few years ago, but I read a study of studies on the safety effects of implementing bike lanes, and separated cycle tracks were safer for all road users. Not only fewer cyclists hurt, but fewer collisions with pedestrians, fewer collisions, car-on-car collisions. But paint on the road was barely safer than just mixed traffic, than no lanes
it
at all.
might be less
barely
safe,
safer.
'cause a false sense of security.
Chevrons were less safe.
Okay, I believe that to be true. It's like a false sense of security. Chevrons, and there's that's on Royal York too. It's like,
They're supposed to be just a reminder. Hey, there's cyclists here. But then people don't know what they're supposed to do with them. And like some people treat them like there should be a bike lane there.
Right. So cyclists get like the false sense of security, and then they get run over. Okay. Now, Ed, you used to work in, I don't know, near Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I lived and worked in the Washington,
the greater Washington area. Is that what they call it? No, GWA?
Well, no, I lived in the suburbs, like a 3-minute walk from the Washington, D.C. line. I worked every day in Washington, D.C. Yeah.
But they still let you write about U.S. politics.
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, I'm a columnist. I mean, I can often write about.
I thought maybe they said,
on my mind.
Keep it in Toronto specific. Or
No, and sometimes they ask me to write about U.S. politics too. We don't have a Washington bureau chief. We have been sending Richard Warnica down to cover some parts of this election and Trumpiness and stuff. We have Alan Woods, who's a foreign correspondent living in Paris right now, but who writes on international issues. So he'll often do some reporting on American stuff. But we don't have like a full-time American writer, and so sometimes they say, if you have thoughts on this, let us know.
Shit. Okay. Because I was just, as a casual observer, it's fucking bananas down there. Like you could have an assassination attempt, and then you can have a president not running for a second term. Just talk to me for the last 10 minutes here about this, like the new normal seems to be madness.
Yeah, a ton has happened just in the last month, the last couple months. And I mean, the U.S. politics has been like a crazy for a while, right? Certainly all through, ever since Donald Trump was elected, things have been happening that are not normal and not expected and all of that. But even more so, it seems to have accelerated recently, right? So certainly there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which came shortly after. Okay, so Joe Biden, nobody runs against him in the primaries that concluded in the spring.
Right.
So this is just backing up, right?
Right.
Donald Trump, nobody runs against him serious. Well, Nikki Haley ran against him. There were a few people ran against him. None of them stood a chance. And he cruised to secure the nomination to try and win the election back. Joe Biden, no Democrats who you've ever heard of run against him in the primaries at all. He is cruising in. But there's kind of whispers that he's not the guy he used to be, that he's slowing down. Age is really catching up with him, right? There's a debate in June.
That was my birthday.
In which...
Because I missed it at TMLX 15.
He is so lost like so incapable of finishing a sentence or completing a thought or just staring off into space and looking confused. And his performance was so poor. And now, a lot of the clips that had gone viral prior to that I saw, where people were saying he's having a senior moment and stuff, a lot of what would happen is that it's a, probably getting worse with age, but it's a phenomenon that you used to see with Joe Biden where he gets a bit tongue-tied or something, but you can kind of follow the train of thought. You can see what he's trying to say, and it's actually like a coherent and often a good point that he doesn't quite stick the wording on, right? This was not that. This is like he just couldn't keep his train of thought. And then in his defense, he and supporters were saying like, he's sharper before 8 p.m. He's got to get a lot of sleep. He's like, he has better days than others, right? And like, that's the kind of thing you say about your parent who's in hospice care or something. Like, some days are better than others. Right. They're still really on the ball sometimes.
Right.
But like, this is not the kind of job where you can go to bed at 8 p.m. and everything's on cruise control until you're back the next day. It's like the kind of job where you're on call 24 hours a day, and the decisions you make in any given moment could impact the entire world. So I think so that wounds his candidacy so severely that Trump had already, with his sort of cult following and his stranglehold on the Republican Party, and saw a lot of dissatisfaction with Joe Biden as president recently. And I think Joe Biden will be remembered as a better president than the American people think he is right now. I think the economy and a lot of things he's done are actually quite remarkable given the circumstances. But that aside, he's not a popular president. Donald Trump, who is also not a popular guy, but has a massive cult following, and the stranglehold on the Republican Party, suddenly appears like he's cruising to re-election. When then somebody takes a shot at him, at a rally, and now the Secret Service director has resigned as a result. When you look at how close the rooftop was to where he was shot, and like, it's just inconceivable that they had not already secured that space, that they were like, but that aside, he gets hit apparently by a bullet. Like, the further reporting, not just what he says.
What is our I know Donald Trump says he was hit by a bullet, but I had heard some people suggest it might have been a piece of glass or something
from the teleprompter. That was the initial speculation,
and it did
from other
heal
people,
awfully
but
quickly, and it seemed to be
official follow-up reporting that I've read.
It was a bullet.
Is that it seems like it was a bullet, possibly redirected from something else, just grazing his ear.
Wow.
Right? And now it's gushing blood. So he goes down initially, the Secret Service go on top of him, but then, of course, he stands up, and it's like something from a painting, right? Like, and especially the where the photographs were shot, where the camera angles are, the way Trump stages his rallies already, he's got cranes with these giant American flags hanging over the stage. So the angle that all the photographs and stuff of him is like, this flag is just fluttering over his head, and all the Secret Service people are beside him but beneath him, because he's emerging from the pile, because they all try to cover him to make sure he's safe.
Right.
And then he emerges up and raises his fist in the air and starts chanting, "Fight, fight, fight," as he's removed from the stage. And this is like in Donald Trump's supporters' wildest dreams. This is the man they think he is, just been shot and still rallying the troops to fight these hardened police officers. And so he has never in his life shown the capacity to, like, any ounce of courage or anything like that before, physical
bone spurs,
bravery before, and yet he, in this moment, manages a kind of iconic, symbolic moment of like refusing. And so, of course, he and his supporters start saying, they tried to impeach me and that didn't work, and they tried to put me in jail, and now they've tried to kill me, and yet not even a bullet could do the job, right? And so that leads to a kind of but they also say, okay, now he's going to be, he's changed by the experience. He's going to be a uniter, not a divider. And that lasted about 5 seconds into his speech, or let's say 5 minutes into his speech, before he started improvising.
Shocking.
And it's the same old angry Donald. So anyhow, immediately after that, President Biden is basically forced by his party to step down and not run again. The more and more prominent leaders of the party in the Senate and in the House of Congress and in former sort of like high-profile people had just coming forward and saying, I love Joe Biden. I love everything he's done for the country and for the party. He served us well, but we will be better served with somebody else as our standard bearer going into the next election. So, less than 3 months or just over 3 months before the election day itself, he announces he's not running anymore.
Wow.
Everybody's like, what's going to happen? Is it going to be an open mini primary, snap primary? Because there's like a convention coming up 1 month after he's making this announcement in Chicago.
Right.
But sort of he quickly endorsed Kamala Harris. Other leaders of the party started to do that. Within I think it was 24 or 48 hours, enough of the people who are actual delegates at the convention had endorsed her that it was clear she would win any vote there.
Right.
But also many of the people who were expected to sort of be the other candidates very quickly endorsed her, right? Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, and others. And so now, a couple weeks later, so she's sort of surging in the polls. All of a sudden, all these memes. Kamala Harris was not a particularly popular person. Before becoming the candidate here, she didn't necessarily poll better than Joe Biden in a head-to-head matchup with Trump. But the switch itself seemed to energize her and the party and the campaign. And they had seemed to be like white knuckle sleepwalking towards like the inevitable. And they kept saying like, do you understand democracy is on the ballot and we are going to lose, right? And now all of a sudden she's out there and laughing and joyfully sort of like saying, let's go and do this. And she becomes an unlikely kind of viral internet sensation. And it did sort of seem to energize the Democrats. And now she's named Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, as her running mate. And he seems to me, this is what I came here maybe wanting to mention, is that I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if they're going to win. I don't know if Tim Walz is going to wind up being a great running mate or a good vice president or not. But I think he's 60 years old, so only 1 year older than her, but he looks much older. He's got a kind of like bald on top, white on the sides sort of look. But he's got
a bit of a gut on him.
Total Midwestern dad mode, right?
Right.
But 24-year National Guard veteran, the Army National Guard. He reached a fairly high rank there. Then a teacher and a football coach. Yeah. And not just a football coach, but the state championship winning football coach. He's a hunter. He and then he's been a governor, right? He talks in the language of like the Midwestern working class, right? He grew up actually in, I want to say Nebraska. He grew up in rural area, moved to the Midwest, but he is like hunting, football, have a beer, grill in the barbecue guy, and he's legitimately that, right? And has lived his life that way, and then became a congressman and became the governor of Minnesota. And what I like about it, maybe not a surprise that Kamala Harris wants to like reach out to these, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, these Midwestern swing states, but also, we talk about rural voters across the United States sort of being really disconnected from the Democratic Party and being this hotbed of republicanism. And I don't know that it's going to work, but I think he is a model of a guy that I've been waiting for this from not just in the United States, but in Canada for a long time, is that it's a different kind of masculinity, right? Like as governor, he put a protection in place that would guarantee abortion rights in Minnesota. He passed a bill for free school lunches for everybody, right? He when he was a high school teacher, not when he was the governor, when he was a high school teacher and he was the football coach, he led he was the faculty advisor on the first Gay Straight Alliance at his high school. And he said he thought it was important that he was still in active military service at the time in the National Guard. So that's like on call. Right. But he said, I'm a soldier, I'm the football coach, I'm a married white straight guy. I think it's important that I be the the voice who says, you are accepted here. And this is going to be the culture at our school. And there's a model of plain-spoken rural masculinity. He likes to hunt. He likes to fish. He's not like a slickster. But he's not about being mean to other people. He's not about being violently vengeful to other people. He's not about like owning his opponents, right? He just calls them weird, right?
Right.
And I feel like there's this like father as both a supporter and a protector, but who can be on your side rather than like against you. I feel like there's a left, working class leftist style there that I wish I saw a lot more of. And so I don't know if he's going to be able to attract votes from rural areas or anything like that. But I think he stands a far better chance. Not of the MAGA faithful, right? Like there are people who are part of a cult.
Well, that's like
here.
religion, yeah.
But there are other people I talk to in, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, like a old mining and resource town there. Other parts of the rural United States who were not like, they were going to vote for Donald Trump last time around, but they were like fanatical about him. But they basically just don't believe the Democrats understand the first thing about their life, right? Like it's like we might as well live on different planets because these guys, like they're talking about green energy. What about us? Like we, and if this is a kind of guy who can talk about things in a way that at least makes you understand why this is important, why someone like you would care about it, like maybe that's good. Like maybe we need more of that in Canada too, on the left. I mean, I think college-educated urbanites like are well represented, right? But also we kind of clearly understand why we think this is in the best interest of everybody, and also why we think this is in the best interest even of the people who won't vote for us. But if there's somebody who could talk in the language of the people who wouldn't vote for us, who could explain it to them better, like I think more people like that, and so I think there's I think a justified energy and enthusiasm and optimism here that wasn't here just a month ago. Who knows what's going to happen next, right? Are we? We're just about out of time, right?
And yeah,
I'll just say, like, if you had told me 2 months ago that this stuff was going to happen,
right?
I would have been shocked. And so there's still 3 months to go, so buckle up. But it does seem like things have changed around to where there's an actual race going on, and it will be interesting to see where it winds up.
And I'm glad you'll be here one more time before the November election in the US of A, just to see what, right, things are changing so rapidly. Who knows? I can't believe how quickly the assassination attempt seemed to leave the news cycle, right? Like, isn't that a generational thing?
Like, well, on to the next thing.
The president's been shot.
Yeah.
Well, that was last week's news, so we're on to something new here. And, you talking about this Kamala and Tim tandem here running for the Democrats, I actually can palpably, even just from being on Twitter and being on Reddit and chatting with people, I can feel the energy shift. Like, I can feel it's like it's palpable. So it's kind of exciting times down there. Let's see what happens. But Ed, always a pleasure to have you on. I know it took us an extra month, but you'll be back in 2 months. That's the bright side. Only 2 months to your next appearance.
I'm looking forward to it.
Tell your daughter you'll have more lasagna.
I will.
Wait till she finds out there's stores that sell that pasta.
No, don't you tell her.
It's not a Toronto Mike basement special here. Anybody can get these delicious Palma pasta lasagnas. And that brings us to the end of our 1,532nd show. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm all over the place at Toronto Mike, but go to torontomike.com. Ed, I know you don't tweet, but is there a social media platform? I know you're at the Keenan Wire, but you don't do anything there. But where are you that you do something?
Right now, I'm not doing much social media. You can find me at thestar.com.
Yeah. Subscribe to the Toronto Star. Read what Ed's writing. Read what great FOTM David Ryder is writing. It's important. Somebody's got to be looking into all these smells I'm smelling coming out of this provincial government. So support your local journalists. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. Beer for the wife and friends. Palma Pasta. That's for your daughter. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. I'm serious. If you want another book, if somebody wants that book, take it with you. And Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow. Who is my guest tomorrow? I should know this, right, Ed? Okay, I'm not a Toronto Star podcaster, okay? All right, her name is Ebony. She's responsible for the Honey Jam concert series.
Yeah.
And this will be very interesting. Looking forward to it. See you all then.